In the dim light of an interrogation room, the line between victim and suspect can become terrifyingly blurred. Imagine you've just survived a horrific nightmare, shot in the head, your loved one lying motionless, and instead of being rescued, you're interrogated, every word questioned, every breath scrutinized. Police, via recording. You're telling me they shot you with a revolver in your eye? Yes. Is it a BB gun? No, it was a real gun, man. Those were the first words we heard from Ryan Waller, a young man who had just escaped the jaws of death. But astonishingly, the very people who should have been protecting him were questioning that obvious truth. To grasp the absurdity of this situation, we need to delve into a complex area of psychology, the psychology of trauma after injury, and the impact of traumatic brain injury, TBI. For Ryan, a bullet had lodged in his head. This wasn't just a physical wound, it was a devastating attack on the control center of everything, the brain. When the brain sustains such severe damage, a person's ability to remember, process information, and even communicate can be profoundly affected. Victims often experience confusion, difficulty concentrating, and sometimes they cannot accurately recall what happened. Ryan's fragmented, contradictory answers were not signs of deception, but the cries of a brain struggling in pain and dysfunction. And even more alarming was that the very people questioning Ryan seemed to ignore all these clear signs. What led them, those trained to seek the truth, to fall into the trap of confirmation bias? In forensic psychology, confirmation bias is a dangerous trap. It occurs when an individual, especially an investigator, forms an initial assumption about a case. For example, Ryan might be the perpetrator or involved in his girlfriend's death. From that moment on, they tend to seek out, interpret, and remember only information that confirms their initial assumption, while ignoring or downplaying contradictory evidence. In Ryan's case, his inability to provide clear answers, his intense physical pain, and even his vagueness about his deceased girlfriend may have been interpreted by detectives as concealment or lying. They didn't see a dying TBI victim, they saw a suspect trying to evade responsibility. This raises a chilling question. Did a lack of training in trauma psychology make them part of the tragedy instead of rescuers? Part 1 shows us a stark truth. In the most horrific moments, a victim can be pushed into the position of a suspect not by their actions, but by the ignorance and bias of others. Ryan's condition was not just a physical wound, it was a fierce mental struggle, exacerbated by the very people who should have protected him. In the next parts, we will explore deeper into that fateful night and the tragic, lasting consequences Ryan had to bear. Let's find out what truly happened in that house and whether Ryan could find justice for himself and his girlfriend Heather. Before the brutality of the interrogation room unfolded, before Ryan had to grapple with agonizing questions, a terrifying night had descended upon his and Heather's home. It was a fateful night, where simmering animosity erupted into an unforgivable act of violence. On that fateful night, two men, Richie and Larry Carver, broke into Ryan's house, not to rob, but for revenge over a past argument. The previous video briefly mentioned it, but to understand the motive more deeply, we need to look at motive psychology. Often, such extreme acts of violence don't stem from a single event, but are the culmination of an accumulation process. Perhaps it was a heated argument beforehand about property, an insult, or an unresolved debt. Seemingly minor conflicts that gnaw away, transforming into deep personal hatred. For individuals with a violent psychological makeup, the line between verbal dispute and physical action is very thin. They may feel their control threatened or their self-esteem wounded, leading to an intense desire to teach someone a lesson defined by pain and fear. Real-world examples show that many cases of personal revenge originate from initially minor conflicts. From an unpleasant remark, an unintentional act, to accumulating misunderstandings, everything can be ignited in the minds of individuals with violent tendencies, turning into a cold, retaliatory plan. The heartbreaking lesson from stories like these is that sometimes small flames of hatred, if left unresolved, can burn everything down. It's a reminder of the importance of resolving conflicts civilly before they turn into irredeemable tragedies. And when that house door was broken, a real nightmare began. In the next part, we will step into the crime scene, witness the brutality of the attack, and feel Ryan's desperate struggle to hold on to life amidst a tragic and chaotic setting. When the gunshots rang out and then fell silent, a tragic scene unfolded. It wasn't just a crime scene, but where a desperate struggle for life took place amidst the brutality of the attacker and the fierce instinct for survival. Ryan Waller heard a noise at the door, a warning sign he couldn't have anticipated. As he approached to investigate, a hand reached in and shot him twice in the eye. This was a cruel, personally destructive act, not just murder, but an intent to inflict permanent damage, to strip the victim of their ability to see the world. Immediately after, Richie and Larry Carver stormed into the house. Not stopping at Ryan, they ruthlessly shot his girlfriend, Heather, killing her instantly. How horrifying must that scene have been for someone who had just been critically shot? Miraculously, Ryan Waller, at 18 years old, survived this horrific attack. In victimology, we often explore how factors like age, gender, or lifestyle can influence one's susceptibility to becoming a victim. But in this case, Ryan was a pure victim of sudden and senseless violence. And then came the desperate struggle to survive. Despite being shot in the head, Ryan was still able to speak to the police when they arrived hours later. This is a testament to the powerful human instinct for survival. Even when facing imminent death, the body and mind try to resist, maintain basic functions, seek help, or at least convey final information. The lesson from this section is how fragile life is and how powerful the instinct for survival can be, even in the most desperate moments. But at the same time, it also poses a haunting question. What happens when that survival instinct is ignored and help doesn't arrive in time? When police arrived at the scene, Ryan should have been rushed straight to the hospital. But instead, he was taken to another place to begin an even more painful ordeal, a grueling interrogation. In the next part, we will delve into the interrogation tapes, where every word Ryan uttered exposed his critical health condition and the inexplicable callousness of the investigators. Every question, every hesitant answer from Ryan was clear evidence of ongoing cognitive decline, a truth alarmingly overlooked. More than an interrogation, this was a terrifying study of mental deterioration under extreme pressure and medical deprivation. Listening to the interrogation tape, one cannot help but notice the clear signs of Ryan's traumatic brain injury. The detectives, despite trying to speak in a simplified manner, as if to a child, continued to pressure him for answers. They asked Ryan about his education level. "What's the highest grade you went through school?" And Ryan could only reply, "I don't know. I don't know what the highest grade you went through." Vague responses that indicated cognitive confusion, not uncooperativeness. Ryan's confusion about basic information, like his girlfriend Heather's last name or details about how he was injured, should have been red flags. He even said, "I don't know what happened," when asked about the attack. This wasn't a denial of the truth, but one of the common symptoms of brain injury, where the ability to retrieve and organize memories is severely affected. The police even asked Ryan, "What happened to your face?" He replied, "I don't know," then said, "I think it was Heather," and later explained, "She was having Christina with her hair or something, I don't know." These inconsistent answers were the clearest evidence that he was struggling with fragmented thoughts. Delaying medical care in cases of traumatic brain injury can lead to devastating and irreversible consequences. Every minute that passes, brain cells can suffer further damage, leading to more severe complications. This unnecessary 56-minute delay in transporting Ryan to the hospital robbed him of the opportunity for timely treatment and likely contributed to his permanent sequelae later on. The lesson from these interrogation tapes is a chilling reminder of the responsibility of those in law enforcement. Hasty judgment, a lack of understanding of trauma psychology, and ignoring urgent medical signs are not just professional errors, but can determine a person's fate. Despite his near-death state, it's astonishing that Ryan still tried to tell his story. Though his words were vague and fragmented, deep down his mind was fighting to reveal the truth. In the next part, we will witness Ryan's internal battle as he struggled to piece together fragments of memory, ultimately revealing the identities of those who caused this tragedy. Though tormented by physical pain and extreme bewilderment, deep within Ryan's mind, a silent battle was raging. It was a fight to retrieve the pieces of the horrifying truth so his mind could begin to reveal the identities of those who caused this tragedy. In the field of cognitive psychology, particularly the study of memory after trauma, we know that memory recovery does not always occur linearly. With a severe traumatic brain injury like Ryan's, memory can be fragmented, like a book torn into pages and mixed up. Initially, Ryan repeatedly said, "I don't know," when asked about what happened. He confused Heather being hit, then talked about Christina. These contradictory answers were not signs of deception, but rather manifestations of a brain trying to reorganize events in a damaged state. The brain may try to protect itself from overly painful memories by repressing them into the unconscious or making them vague. However, as the interrogation continued, and perhaps partly due to pressure from the detectives, albeit in an inappropriate way, Ryan began to reveal crucial details. He said, "These people came over Richie and his dad." Then he began to assert more clearly, "It's Richie that hit you, not Heather. Richie and his dad, they shot us." This was a gradual memory retrieval process, where fragmented pieces of information began to connect under appropriate pressure or stimulation. The shift from saying, "I don't know," to naming Richie and his dad was a pivotal moment. It showed that despite severe injury, Ryan's will and survival instinct still fought to bring the truth to light. This is a testament to the astonishing resilience of the human mind, even when faced with the deepest wounds. The lesson from Ryan's struggle to find the truth is a powerful reminder. Even in the darkest and most confused moments, the truth still has the power to reveal itself. It also shows that, sometimes, we need to listen, not only to what is said, but also to what is hidden by pain and trauma. Patience and empathy are key to extracting this valuable information. Finally, after almost an hour of painful interrogation, Ryan's request for medical attention was considered. But would this delayed intervention be enough to salvage what was lost? In the next part, we will examine the tragic consequences of this delay on Ryan Waller's life. The case didn't end when the culprits were caught. For Ryan Waller, that was just the beginning of a grueling battle with irreparable damage, a battle that lasted for years, completely reshaping his life. After 56 minutes of agonizing and illogical interrogation, Ryan was finally taken to the hospital. There, doctors immediately recognized his critical condition. Not only was he shot in the eye, but Ryan also developed an infection, a complication that could have been prevented if he had received timely medical care. As a result, Ryan had to be hospitalized for 35 days, and tragically, he lost part of his brain and his entire left eye. But the pain didn't stop there. From the day he left the hospital until 2016, when a final epileptic seizure claimed his life, Ryan lived with frequent seizures. This is the clearest evidence of the long-term medical and psychological consequences of a severe traumatic brain injury and the delay in treatment. Beyond his physical injuries, Ryan also suffered from secondary trauma, a form of psychological trauma arising not directly from the crime, but from how the system reacted to the victim. Being interrogated while dying, being doubted and disbelieved by the very people who should have protected him, caused a deep psychological scar. Ryan's story is also the story of his family. His father had to face the pain of witnessing his son being permanently injured and then finally losing him. They fought tirelessly not only for justice for Ryan, but also for his right to medical care and understanding. This is a touching example of the role of victim advocacy, those who stand up to protect the voices of those who cannot protect themselves. The lesson from the aftermath of Ryan Waller's case is a painful reminder. The burden of crime does not stop at the moment of the act. It can extend throughout the lives of the victim and their family, especially when the system does not fulfill its responsibilities. It emphasizes the importance of empathy, understanding, and timely action. Finally, the perpetrators, Richie and Larry Carver, were brought to justice, receiving life sentences without parole. But was that verdict truly a complete victory when a young life had been irreparably destroyed? In the next part, we will analyze in more detail the legal verdict and the systemic errors that contributed to Ryan Waller's tragedy. Justice was finally served. Richie and Larry Carver had to pay for their crimes. But is a life sentence enough to compensate for a life that has been ruined? Ryan Waller's story forces us to seriously reevaluate the systemic errors that contributed to this tragedy. After what happened, Richie and Larry Carver both faced justice. Both were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This was a harsh verdict, reflecting the brutality of the crime they committed. It brought a certain degree of closure for Ryan and Heather's families, but it could not erase the harm inflicted. However, looking back at this case, the larger question is about the system's responsibility. Why was a dying person with clear signs of a traumatic brain injury interrogated as a suspect for nearly an hour before receiving emergency medical care? This exposes a serious flaw in law enforcement training and procedures. Many legal and forensic psychology experts have pointed out that police need more specialized training on how to recognize and handle victims with physical and psychological trauma. Ignoring Ryan's clear signs was not just unprofessionalism, but also a violation of professional ethics. An interrogation in that condition could easily be seen as coercion or causing further trauma to the victim, regardless of the initial intent. Real-world examples show that there have been many similar cases around the world where victims were misunderstood as suspects due to their psychological or physical state after trauma. This not only causes injustice, but also hinders the actual investigation. The system needs clear and strict regulations on prioritizing medical care for seriously injured individuals before conducting any interrogation. The painful lesson from Ryan Waller's case is not just about individual criminal behavior, but also about the responsibility of an entire system. It is an urgent call for reform, for prioritizing human rights and empathy in every aspect of justice. Because true justice is not just punishing criminals, but also protecting and rehabilitating victims, those who have suffered undeserved harm. With these profound lessons, we will conclude the story of Ryan Waller by summarizing the core values this case brings. In the final part, we will look back at what happened, draw the most important lessons for the community and society, and reflect together on how to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Ryan Waller's story is not just a personal tragedy, but also a powerful wake-up call for society as a whole. It is a painful reminder of the fragile boundaries between justice and indifference, between truth and prejudice. From Ryan's short and tragic life, we can draw several important core lessons. First, it's the importance of awareness about traumatic brain injury and its impact on victim behavior and testimony. Ryan's story is a prime example of how symptoms of trauma are not always deception or concealment. Second, this case is an urgent call for police training reform. Law enforcement needs to be equipped with more specialized knowledge about trauma psychology, how to interrogate victims sensitively and humanely, and the absolute importance of prioritizing emergency medical care. No one who is dying should be interrogated instead of being treated. Third, this story emphasizes victims' rights, the right to timely medical care, the right to be believed, and the right to be treated with respect and empathy. The justice system must be a place that protects the most vulnerable, not a place that creates more burdens for them. And finally, the biggest lesson is perhaps about our role as a community. When witnessing someone in distress, the first thing we should do is help, listen, and understand, rather than judge or suspect. Empathy can make the difference between life and death, between justice and tragedy. From Ryan Waller's case is a profound tragedy, exposing the flaws and errors that can occur even within the system meant to protect us. It is a reminder that justice is not just about punishing crime, but also about protecting human dignity, even in the darkest moments. In your opinion, what is the most important thing we can learn from this tragedy? What do we as a society need to do to prevent similar cases from happening in the future? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video if you found this content valuable, share it so Ryan's story isn't forgotten, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any deep criminal psychology analyses and other compelling stories. Thank you for listening to Ryan Waller's story, a story that will forever be a warning about the importance of compassion and responsibility in justice.